Welcome in, everybody. My name is Mark Farzetta. You're locked on Phil's postcast right now. Welcome in. Just a disappointing ending to this awful, awful game, unfortunately. Bats couldn't get it going. Defense couldn't help out their pitcher. Strike zone was erratic for both sides. Don't know what a strike was and what a strike wasn't today. Imagine being a pitcher in this game. But bottom line is Rob Thompson gave an opportunity to Christian Pache. Rob Thompson gave an opportunity to Whit Merrifield, put Mundo Sosa at second base as well today to give an off day to a lot of the regulars. And they could have squeaked out a win had it not been for too many mistakes on the base paths, too many mistakes fielding the baseball, throwing the baseball. Too many things came back to bite the Phillies in the old behind today as they take the loss 3-2 before heading out to St. Louis for a 3-game series with the Cardinals. The Phillies could have very well broke out the brooms today, but they got to stay in the closet as they take that 3-2 loss. Right now, you are locked on Phils, ladies and gentlemen. And don't forget, this episode is brought to you by the people at Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonmlb and use all lowercase locked on MLB for the first deposit match of $100. Right now, you're locked on Phillies postcast.
You are Locked On Phillies postcast, part of Locked On Sports Philadelphia on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Let's start it with the mistakes. All right. You're watching this game unfold. You're watching the Phillies take on the Nationals today, hoping that they can complete the sweep and get one game over 500. All is right with the world. Christopher Sanchez, who's pitched very well for you recently, has done, dating back to last year as well, has done a great job. So you want to be able to close out this game. You want to be able to close out this series. So Rob Thompson decides, you know what? We're going to take Bryson Stott out of the lineup today. Brandon Marsh is going to get a day off today. Christian Pache, I know a lot of people have been clamoring for Christian Pache to get the start in center field. He finally got that start today. And Mundo Sosa almost, he tried to bail you out today, saying you needed minimal effort from everybody else. But unfortunately, the Phillies weren't able to close out the game. And the biggest reason they couldn't close out this game wasn't because of an erratic strike zone, because both teams had to deal with that today. It was unreal how bonkers it was. But the number one reason, if I had to say why the Phillies lost this game today, it's simply because they did not play smart baseball. You're facing a team in the Washington Nationals that are not a very smart baseball team. Case in point, that play that came out there in the second inning of today's game, where you have Adams on third base, you have a sharp hit ground ball to Alec Bohm at third. He fields it, fires home, gets an easy. Why would you send Adams there? Well, I'll tell you why. Because the Washington Nationals are not a good baseball team. More importantly, the reason they're not a good baseball team is because they're not a smart baseball team. And when a good baseball team, which I think the Phillies are by the time the season's end rolls around, I think they'll be a playoff team. I don't have much doubt about that. But when they are a good baseball team and they play bad baseball and they play stupid baseball, that's when they lose games. This is what I look at today when I talk about mistakes. The first thing, Kyle Schwarber. I understand that there's an opportunity there for the Phillies to get a runner in scoring position with Trea Turner on at the plate, and you have 2 outs. If you get thrown out, at least you still have Trea Turner coming up in the next inning. Trea Turner hasn't been hitting the cover off the ball this year. Why not just keep a runner on there? Give him an opportunity to bring somebody around if he puts one in the gap, which he can absolutely do. Trea Turner's done it more than a couple of times in his career. So instead, they decide to steal second base. What happens with Kyle Schwarber? Not exactly fleet of foot. He gets thrown out to end the inning, so that ends any opportunity there for you to at least try to get one run across the plate. Then in the field, more blunders. Only charged today with 1 error, and it was on JT Realmuto. They should have had at least 2 errors in this game. But JT Realmuto gets a pitch behind the plate, decides to throw to second base. It bounces, goes into center field. Trea Turner's not able to knock it down to keep it infield, and Lane Thomas is the one stealing that base. He ends up going to third, and he later comes around to score. We'll highlight it even more so a little bit later in the show. But just to talk about the Phillies' mistakes, that was another one. Then you had 2 issues where Christopher Sanchez looked like he had a guy picked off. Twice looked like he had a guy picked off. On one instance, Bryce Harper bobbles the ball in his mitt, and fails to be able to throw out Young at second base. Now, Christopher Sanchez, which was in the first inning, had an opportunity to pick him off and had him dead to rights. Harper, hey, it happens. Sometimes you can't dig the ball out of your mitt. Had a little bumble, had a little fumble with the ball there, didn't make the throw. They were arguing on the broadcast he wouldn't have been able to get him out anyway. I disagree entirely. I think Harper, on a good throw, like he made the second time he had to do it, you're able to get him out. Now, about that second time with Bryce Harper, here's the situation. You had bottom of the third inning. Bryce Harper's at first still. You have another pickoff attempt there from Christopher Sanchez. He throws the ball to Harper. Harper digs it out of his mitt cleanly this time, fires to second base where Trea Turner's covering, and for whatever reason, Trea Turner couldn't apply the tag. It looked like Trea Turner, from the angle we saw, it looked like Trea Turner ran up to the second base bag from short and ran too far to his right and had to lunge back to his left in order to tag out. I think it was Thomas. At that point, it was Thomas rounded the bases, and it was. And he can't lay down the tag to get Thomas. Now, he could have had him out. At that point in the game, in that third inning, bottom of the third inning, Thomas led off by working a walk. You got Gallo at the plate. Thomas goes to steal. You have that play there that I just described, Harper to Turner. Turner can't make the tag. And then what ends up happening is that Joey Gallo ends up grounding out the shortstop, and Thomas has to stay at second. In this particular instance, you would have had 2 outs in the inning if you would have executed that play. Instead, they did not execute the play. And what ended up happening? Meneses gets an RBI single to center field. Thomas comes around to score, and then they're able to get out of that inning after that. It made it a 2-1 ball game. 2-1 ball game in favor of the Nationals at that point. So the Phillies got burnt. If they just played good baseball, you don't have that run across the plate. It's pretty amazing how that can work. But unfortunately, they decided not to execute good baseball. In the top portion of that inning, this is where I just don't get it. Like I said earlier, Kyle Schwarber trying to steal second base with 2 outs, Trea Turner at the plate. I can see why, at least. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't encourage Kyle Schwarber to do it. But he did it, and he got thrown out. Barely. On a bad throw, too. So no breaks there for the Phils. But in the top half of that third inning, Kyle Schwarber leads off with a walk. Trea Turner steps up. He strikes out. Bryce Harper hits the ball. He lined out to center field. And then on the line out to center field, I don't know what Kyle Schwarber was watching, but you knew that ball was going to get caught. There is no way that ball was going to be dropped. Kyle Schwarber decides that ball is going to drop in center field, and he is way late to make it back to first base. He ends up getting doubled off at first base. Inning ended right there. You have the heart of the order obviously coming up there, and Kyle Schwarber ends any threat by getting doubled off at first base. He's a veteran. He's also a veteran who can judge a fly ball. He certainly walked enough. His on-base percentage is decent enough over the course of his career where he should be able to judge a fly ball to center field rather well. This one, I guess he thought was slicing away a little bit easier, a little bit faster, and he thought he could make it around second base, third, maybe even score if it gets behind him. If it gets behind him, he's scoring. Even if he only goes halfway, because that ball is going to go all the way to the wall with the way that was cutting in center field. Kyle Schwarber reads it horribly and gets doubled off at first base. Stupid mistake by a veteran player. These are like the guys that hurt you today weren't Whit Merrifield, who also got a start today. The guys that hurt you today certainly wasn't Christian Pache. Look, the play he had in center field, way over his head. He reaches up. It hit his mitt. Could he have had it? Yes. It would have been an incredible catch. No runs ended up scoring on that particular play. But it was in his mitt. He could have caught it. It would have been insane. It would have been amazing. Does Johan Rojas make that catch? Maybe. But as the game played out, those weren't the guys that came back to bite you. And Mundo Sosa led your offense today by driving in your only 2 runs. One with an RBI single. That one came up there in the second inning. And then the home run, of course, came up in the 5th inning. Like that's what you want to see from Mundo Sosa. And by the way, a guy that doesn't get many starts throughout the season finds a way to contribute and help you win, not once, but twice. Whit Merrifield gets on base in this game, yeah, that helps. So if your regulars contributed at all, you're winning this baseball game. But unfortunately, as you go through it, You see Nick Castellanos took the collar today. You see going on down the box score. Kyle Schwarber 1 for 3. Trea Turner 0 for 4. Realmuto took the 0 for today. Bohm an 0 for. Castellanos an 0 for. And then Christian Pache 0 for 2. I'm not expecting much from Christian Pache in the lineup today, unfortunately. But the regulars contribute a little bit, you win this game. And you didn't get that today. Even with Kyle Schwarber working a walk and getting on base with a hit, still found a way to hurt you on the base paths. One time getting doubled off and the other time getting thrown out at second on an attempted steal. The regulars help you a little, you win the game. They didn't help you at all today. Trea Turner, I know he belted one to the left field wall there in the top of the 9th inning, and that ball bounces off the wall. Winkler doesn't make the catch, and Trea Turner could be on third base. You know what I mean? And it's a totally different story. But that's not the way it shook out today, unfortunately. Look, am I happy that they won the series? Yes, they had that locked up yesterday. They had an opportunity still with a good pitcher on the hill today to be able to win the game. But despite all these problems that the Phillies had, these shoot yourselves in the foot moments that the Phillies had, they still had an opportunity to one-run ball game to win it. And it just drives me crazy. It's kind of got all big three things in there at once. Coming up, we're going to get into one of the guys that I just, as of right now, I just don't get it. Just looks lost at the plate, and we'll jump to that in just a second. But you are watching Locked On Phillies postcast. One guy continues to be frustrating. We'll jump on that in just a second. But first, we got to tell you about some fine sponsors. As you heard me mention earlier, this show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members, and it is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you're watching your favorite sports teams and your favorite players. You just pick simple, more or less. 2 or more, right there. 2 more players, stats, watching the winnings. Oh, man, you just watch them roll in after that. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats, and you watch the winnings roll in. With baseball underway, don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your Prize Picks entries, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, first inning runs. You take your pick of more or less, and you add them to your Prize Picks entries today. Get in on the playoff action just around the corner in the National Basketball Association there. 100 times your money on Prize Picks. As you want to play with some of the world's best players, you could get in on all of that action. Basketball's postseason just around the corner. Playoffs begin April 20th. Play in around April 16th, 17th, 19th, and all that. You guys can check it out. If you want to play along some of Prize Picks' favorite players like Meek Mill, Philadelphia's own Meek Mill, Sugar Sean O'Malley, you could do that as well. You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in Prize Picks community each week. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of $100. That's promo code LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, when you download the app for your first deposit match of $100. I mentioned some of the guys that were able to help you today. Whit Merrifield, part-timer. He gets a hit for you today. He even scores a run. And Mundo Sosa, 2 for 2 today. He gets a home run. That's nice when you see contributions like that. One guy I am not going to have a lot of patience for at the plate is Nick Castellanos. And I feel like every single game, look, over the last 2 games, last 2 shows we've done, what have I done? I have praised him for laying off some pitches. I have praised Nick Castellanos for laying off some pitches. Today with an erratic strike zone, it wasn't so much that. It was just the lack of aggression. And there was one particular instance in today's game that really got to me. And you watch Nick Castellanos come to the plate in the 4th inning. Already 2 outs. Alec Bohm had just struck out looking at a fastball inside. It was right on the line. Whatever. It was a strike. He should have swung at it. He didn't. So he strikes out looking. Nick Castellanos comes up, and this is another pitch. I just assume that he's just not seeing the ball well to start the season. I assume right now he's just trying to pick it up, okay? And he has a situation where it's a fastball. I hate to even call it outside, but it was still very much on the plate. outer half of the plate, worst case scenario, doesn't even offer at it. We have seen Nick Castellanos swing a million times at pitches that are far off the outer half of the plate. This was all over the outer half of the plate, down the middle of the outer half of the plate. And Nick Castellanos is watching one play going, oh, how about that? And one of the things that's so frustrating about him, if you listen to him in his interviews and you know the player and you followed him over the last 2 seasons he's been here in Philadelphia, he is not like, we like people that are that get a little panicked. We like people that get a little panicked, that show you that it's affected, they're really affected by their failures. But he is just chill as anything. Chill as anything. That's why some people that have a problem with Rob Thompson, they got a problem with Rob Thompson. Not just because of how he might handle the bullpen in a playoff series, but simply because he's just always that even keel guy. You never really see that emotion from him. Nick Castellanos is also one of those guys. You really don't see the emotion from him. So I don't know if he's just having trouble picking up the ball out of the pitcher's hand, and that's how he's starting out the season. And his numbers continue to nosedive. Right now, 133 on the season with a 378 on base percentage. Strikeouts racking up for him. Looking at those pitches on the outer half of the plate, I don't know if he's trying to drill it so far into his head to not offer at those pitches that dive out of the strike zone, those sliders and breaking pitches that just dive away from him as he starts chasing those pitches in the dirt. I don't know if that's the problem, if he's overcompensating, but that was a pitch a good hitter drives into the opposite field. And next thing you know, you got somebody maybe even standing on second base. Maybe he puts it down the right field line. Maybe he's standing on second base. You have a runner in scoring position. 2 outs. Maybe you get a little 2-out lightning going in that situation by just offering at the pitch, throwing the barrel of the bat out there and just going with the pitch. That seems to be not part of Nick Castellanos' game right now. Last year, we saw the hits come for Nick Castellanos. This year, they look like there'll be fewer and far between. You hope it's just a slow start. You cross your fingers that it's just a slow start for Nick Castellanos. All right, get back to some of the mistakes here. I mentioned on the bases there, you had an issue with Kyle Schwarber trying to steal and also getting picked off of first base on that fly ball, a little doubled up off of first base. I don't get, and it sucks because it's a run charged to Christopher Sanchez, who was still pitching at the time. But in the 5th inning, Winker grounds out to second base. You get 1 out right out of the gate. So you're already up if you're Christopher Sanchez. Lane Thomas, who became a thorn in the side of the Phillies in this particular game. Good ball player. If he was a Philly, you'd be looking at maybe this is the series that he turns things around. This is the game that he starts to turn things around, off to a terrible start to his season. After being a valued trade commodity last year, a lot of people wanted Lane Thomas, ended up not being moved. But he gets the infield single. He gets credited with an infield single when Alec Bohm fielded the ball at third base, fired to first, and pulled Bryce Harper off the bag. I haven't seen an instance where that's a hit. Was he busted it down the line? Sure, he was busted it down the line, but a good throw, he's out. So I don't know if they've changed it after the game or if they'll change it later, but that to me should not be an earned run charged to Christopher Sanchez, as Lane Thomas ended up coming around to score later in the inning. But through that whole inning, you start out, you get it out right out of the gate for Christopher Sanchez. Thomas ends up what's being called right now the infield single with Bohm pulling Harper off the bag. Gallo then steps up to the plate. Thomas steals second base, and this is where JT Realmuto's throw bounced in front of Trea Turner. Again, mistakes. Trea Turner, I think, overran the bag on that first steal attempt or second steal attempt where Bryce Harper threw a good ball to him and he just couldn't apply the tag. Looked like he was too far away the first time Thomas was able to take second. So now you're in the 5th inning. You have the same situation here with Thomas on first base. Thomas then breaks for second, and Turner somehow doesn't even knock down the ball that JT Realmuto threw. Now, did JT Realmuto make a bad throw? Yes, but that's only for a stolen base. The fact that Turner couldn't put his body in front of the throw and stop it from going into center field was also ridiculous, and then Thomas is able to take third on the throw. So now you just went from 1 out, things looking rosy, to a runner on third with still 1 out. So you have a runner sitting there at third. Anything can score a guy like Lane Thomas with how well he runs. So when that situation rears its ugly head, you have first and later third after Gallo's able to get on base. First and third with 1 out. Christopher Sanchez comes out. Junior Marte comes in. He's facing Meneses, okay? Renasis works a walk. Adams goes up there. He flies out to left field, but it's a sac fly RBI. So who scores? Lane Thomas, who basically the Phillies just allowed on base with what should have been an error by Alec Bohm, stealing second base on a throwing error by JT Realmuto, and not being able to keep it in front of him for Trea Turner. And then you have sac fly, brings him in. Now you're trailing 3-2. And when they went down 3-2, with the way the Phillies offense wasn't producing today, other than a Mundo Sosa, obviously, but with the way the Phillies bats were today, you just had this feeling from watching the mistakes in the field. Because by the fifth inning, you had already seen Schwarber get doubled off. You had already seen Bryce Harper make the mistake by not being able to get the ball out of his mitt early. Trea Turner not being able to apply the tag. You had just already seen Pache letting the ball bounce out of his mitt. Could have been an incredible play. You had already seen Christopher Sanchez not being able to locate. I hate to even say locate the strike zone. Because for, again, both pitchers, Menendez's strike zone today, who was the home plate umpire, was god-awful. So it was very difficult to understand what a strike was and what a strike wasn't. So Christopher Sanchez, bottom line, couldn't locate the strike zone. So he's struggling. Needs someone to pick him up. And the bats couldn't do it, and the defense couldn't do it for him today either. So you go to that fifth inning, you're down 3-2, and already you're feeling like this they don't have it today. The Brooms, once again, are going to be staying in the closet. And that's the way it was, unfortunately. Later in the game, Phillies just couldn't get anything going in the sixth inning, couldn't get anything going in the eighth inning, couldn't get anything going in the ninth inning. Realmuto had a bad strike call against him. It should have been a ball four. He ended up walking anyway, so it didn't even come back to get you. You could call it a bad break with Trea Turner hitting that ball to the wall there in left field, but Winker just made a great play on it, and the Phillies just got beat. Phillies today did something that they have done far too often in the past, and we'll talk about it in a second when we come back here on the Phillies postcast. Let me tell you right now about the Game Time app. Do you have the Game Time app? Let's talk about it. Because let's talk about for a second how frustrating it could be to actually buy a ticket these days. You don't know where the seats are exactly. You might not have the good view, so you go in not knowing. And how about the worst part of it all? You get that surprise total at the end. Suddenly those $20 tickets are now $30. How did that happen? Not at the Game Time app. The Game Time app lets you view the seat before you buy. It also gives you all-in pricing, so there's no surprise total. There's no sticker shock at the end going, wait, hold on, where do those service fees come from? What are you even talking about? Download the app today for the Game Time app and have the best ticket buying experience. Game Time is now authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier to the ball game. Plus, prices of the Game Time app they go down the closer you get to the first pitch. They also have last-minute ticket deals, flash ticket deals, zone deals, and they have easy to find and buy MLB tickets for every kind of event in your area. View all the seats in the venue as well. Lowest price guaranteed. Let's not forget about that. Event cancellation protection, job loss protection, the lowest price guaranteed. Listen to this. This is the Game Time guarantee. You find tickets in the same section or row for less money elsewhere, the Game Time app will get you back at 110% of the difference. How about that? It takes the guesswork out of buying tickets with the Game Time app. For a limited time, by the way, all users can get $20 off any MLB purchase of $150 or more in the Game Time app with code FIRSTPITCH. That's promo code FIRSTPITCH. Terms apply. Code FIRSTPITCH. FIRSTPITCH for $20 off from March 25th to April 14th only. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute ticket deals, lowest price guaranteed with the Game Time app. Looking at the Phillies over the last couple of seasons, one thing we have noticed about them in the first half of seasons is not just the fact that they struggle, but they do what? They play down to their opponents. Today, even with some of the reserves in, if you will, some of the part-time players in, those guys actually, Merrifield, Mundo Sosa again, those guys hit for you today a little bit. Even with those guys being in the lineup, they still managed, with your regulars, to play down to the Washington Nationals. look, there's no point system when you talk about Major League Baseball with wins and losses, so all these wins and losses count the same as they do in September. It's games like this where you just don't have it going with your regular guys that you lean on throughout the season, that you go back, oh man, just stack a couple of more wins like that in April, and we're not sweating out September like we have in recent years. And maybe the Phillies just need that time to hit their stride, but it has been a lot of struggles, especially on the base paths. And there was one thing that really made them play down to their opponent in the way that they did today. And I've highlighted this for you guys in the early goings of the season, but it is something that has become, again, a trend. And we talked about this on yesterday's show. Shout out to Todd Zalecki of MLB.com for putting the numbers together. And what amazes me about this is that this doesn't even include the base running blunders where they make bad decisions on trying to steal second base, okay? Going into this game, Phillies base runners had made 5 outs on the bases this season. That leads Major League Baseball. Now I believe it's 7. Now, again, this doesn't count pickoff attempts, and it doesn't count getting caught stealing. This was put out after Kyle Schwarber had the base running blunder and where he got doubled off at first base. What really bothers me, like Johan Rojas getting picked off in that pinch run situation against the Reds, I want to say it was, with Kyle Schwarber, where Kyle Schwarber was on second, they pinch run Johan Rojas. Rojas gets picked off at second base. Next thing you know, you got runners in scoring position in the extra innings, of course, and Rojas's spot comes up in the lineup, or Schwarber's spot comes up in the lineup, and it's Johan Rojas who's ended up taking that at bat. Came back to bite you. In this game, a 1-run game, it certainly came back to bite you again. So how do you solve this problem that has been on repeat for the Phillies? Does Rob Thompson fix this problem? You look at the days off. You don't have any days off here. How many times are you going to talk about it in a clubhouse meeting? It didn't look like you. This is what drives me crazy is that this was a problem a year ago with Phillies getting thrown out of the base paths, misreading plays, misreading balls hit to the outfield, getting doubled off bases, thinking you could tag up on a fly ball to left field that's short left field, shallow left field, and you get thrown out at home. This is something that happens way too often with the Phils. It happened last year. It's happening again this year. Leading Major League Baseball in the early goings of the season in this category. This is not new. What did this coaching staff do to correct the problem? Now, you might say, they're veterans. They should know better. You're absolutely right. They should know better. But apparently they don't. I know they love the daycare club, or the daycare kids and all that stuff with the Phillies. That's great. These guys aren't rookies anymore. There's no excuses here. Johan Rojas, a young enough player, but he's been around long enough. He should have a good head on his shoulders. Kyle Schwarber obviously should have a better head on his shoulders when judging a fly ball. This is something that has to be corrected because it's one of those things that you watch these games and you think little leaguers know better than this. And this is a team that was a win away for the World Series last year and in a World Series 2 years ago. And a lot of the same pieces of the puzzle on this team. This isn't an inexperienced ball club. And that's what drives you crazy, absolutely crazy about this game, is that you continue to see these mistakes. And you can hold out hope. You could say, you know what, we've seen this movie before where they struggle early in the season and all of a sudden they turn it around. Yeah, that's great. But until they turn it around, it just leaves us sweating it out. You wanted the good vibes. You certainly wanted the good vibes after maybe completing the sweep against the Nationals and going in and handling your business against the St. Louis Cardinals. But the Phillies just don't get it. In a day where you were really counting on the part-time players to come up and make something happen for you. And for the most part, they delivered. There's got to be a game sooner rather than later where Nick Castellanos snaps out of it. That's what I'm going to keep telling myself. There's got to be a game sooner or later where that happens. JT Realmuto has helped you win a game. Bryce Harper has certainly helped you win a game. Kyle Schwarber's helped get you on the board. Not necessarily win a game yet, but got you on the board. You got to see these guys, these regular contributors, start to hit their stride. And I know that a lot of people look at it as hitting season. Well, today was probably their best weather game of the season. And then Mundo Sosa was your Ted Williams today. Not great. Not ideal. But guys like that are supposed to be, bonus features, supporting players to the main stars of the show. Didn't get that today, unfortunately. Hey, today's a double dip, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. So here's what we got. We got the Phillies postcast going on right now, obviously. Tonight, 76ers have a lot on the line. Looking to help their playoff standings. We'll be on after the Sixers take on the Spurs tonight. We'll be on right after that game. So don't miss Sixers postcast as well. We'll be right here on the same channel, the Locked On Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. So make sure you guys hit like, subscribe, all that great stuff. This is Locked On Phillies postcast on the Locked On Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Big game in Philly. We're talking about it after right here on the postcast. Locked On Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe. My name is Mark Farzetta. I'll be back with you guys tonight after the Sixers, hopefully without Joel Embiid and without Kyle Lowry, both being ruled out for tonight against the Spurs, come away with a victory to keep pace with the Heat and the Pacers who are battling right now. See you guys a little bit later tonight. See ya.